Folks, it's getting savage out there, and that's why I'm bringing I'm bringing the guy with the most savage beard on. Tee this up for us, Bill. What are we about to watch?
Long story short, we are about to watch the funniest thing in news history since Trump called Jim Acosta fake news.
Okay, here we go.
That's basically the long and short of it.
Hi.
Kari.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Count off and CNN.
You don't have a mask on anymore. What's going
we're
on?
outside. Do you have a
Wow.
minute to
Well,
chat?
we're 6 feet apart.
Do you have a minute to chat?
I'll do an interview
Okay.
as long as it airs on CNN Plus. Does that still exist? I didn't think so because the people don't like what you guys are peddling,
So,
which is propaganda. Thank you.
That's involuntary servitude.
Okay, and that's it. Maybe we should explain that's Kari Lake. She's a former TV anchor who is running for governor. She's currently a primary candidate for the GOP position in Arizona. And Trump endorsed, and they tweeted this out. Watch what happens when CNN ambushes Kari Lake outside of an event. I'll do an interview with you as long as it airs on CNN Plus. Does that still exist? Boom. All right, Bill, take it away.
Okay, first and foremost, that was absolutely hilarious. The jab at the CNN Plus, but it's also kind of a little low-hanging fruit. So, it is what it is, but it is effing hilarious to see CNN get their upcomings at every turn because for years, don't get me wrong, the young lady who was trying to get an interview, okay, number one, that is not an ambush. Okay, there's multiple reporters, there's multiple media outlets, multiple journalists out there trying to get a word with Kari Lake. That's not an ambush. So that's very much clickbaity title there. That's first and foremost. Number two, I think this is, first and foremost, let me say this, Allison. It's hilarious to see CNN get their upcomings or comeuppance or however you want to say that. But at the same time, I don't know if this particular CNN reporter is responsible or directly related to anything that CNN has said about Kari Lake. Now, they've said some outrageous stuff and they've said some crazy stuff. And I'm not the biggest Kari Lake supporter. Okay. She has said and done some outrageous stuff. But at the same time, this is CNN getting slapped upside the head after they probably righteously deserve it. And it's hilarious. It's funny to see the elite corporate media people get slapped in the nuts. It's funny. It's hilarious. And that's forget Kari Lake's eccentric point of views, especially when it comes to politics, conservatism, and right-wing stuff. This is a former journalist who was tired of the BS way that journalism was being done and presented in corporate America, and she slapped backs at him. I have no problem with that. I think it's hilarious. This is the funniest thing since Trump told Jim Acosta, "You are fake news." It is.
As you were saying, that the person could have been a field producer of some kind, or a booker. I have no idea. I don't recognize her, but then again, I don't watch CNN a whole lot. So if it was just like a daily sort of on-scene reporter, I would probably not recognize that person. But I don't know. But like you said, who knows if this particular person is necessarily responsible for some of the stuff we'll show you in a second, which is probably why there's some bad blood between Kari Lake and CNN. My favorite part is the handshake. Okay, let's watch how this all goes down, and they never unlock hands. All right, let's watch this again.
Hi.
Kari.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Count off and CNN.
You don't have a mask on anymore. What's going
we're
on?
outside. Do you have a minute to
Well, we're
chat?
6 feet apart.
Do you have a minute to chat?
I'll do an interview
Okay.
as long as it airs on CNN Plus. Does that still exist? I didn't think so because the people don't like what you guys are peddling,
So,
which is propaganda. Thank you.
So the whole time, I mean, let's just watch this
She
with
almost
no
pulled her in.
sound. Yeah, with no sound. I'm gonna look up the name of this person so we can confirm what her position is. But yeah, let's watch this with no sound here. And oh, hi, look at the handshake. Hi, I hate you. Oh, really? No, I really hate you. Let's keep holding hands. Look at this. Keep holding hands. Keep
Come
holding.
here, bitch.
We're not gonna let go. Look, oh, smiles, fake smiles, holding hands, and she's gone. Okay.
Yeah.
I think what makes this a little bit different for me is that, like you said, it's not just anybody. It's not just anybody telling CNN that they're BS. It's a former,
Hmm.
TV anchor. And
Yeah.
I think that's what is making this a little more significant for me as a phenomenon. Like,
Hmm.
whether you like Kari Lake, you agree, disagree, whatever,
Hmm.
is the savage nature of the in-group fighting now. Like, we just saw this happening at the Washington Post with the reporters arguing on Twitter. And now, granted, Kari Lake doesn't work at CNN. She never did. They're not coworkers, but you're seeing people,
Hmm.
peers, you know what I mean? Peers
Right.
in the corporate journalism world just going after each other. And
Hmm.
the club is dissolving. Does that
Yep.
make sense, Bill?
No, 100% makes sense, because the liberals are starting to turn on themselves. The liberals got all the power. They have the media, they have the White House, they have the Senate, they have Congress, and they have all this stuff. They had everything, and now they're starting to turn on themselves. With that being said, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Kari Lake, but I respect her as somebody who's willing to, Republicans, right-wing people, especially in the journalism space, have become the new Rage Against the Machine. Seriously, think about it. Liberals own everything. They own social media, and they own legacy media. They own all branches of government except for SCOTUS. And, this is somebody from the inside who's given the middle finger, saying, F you, I won't do what you tell me. Now, is she maybe a little crazy? Probably maybe gets into the conspiracy theory stuff a little too much? Probably. But forget the politics. Forget all that other stuff. This is somebody giving a middle finger to corporate news in America, telling them, F you, I won't do what you tell me, in a very hilarious manner. And anybody that looks further past that, that's up to you. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But the fact that CNN and all these other very liberal media companies on the corporate level are starting to get slaps in the face from their own, as Allison said. I don't agree with everything Ivory Hecker says. I don't agree with everything Kari Lake says, but they're slapping the corporate media in the face from within, and there's something very poetic and kind of sexy about it. I mean, seriously, sexy may not be a great word to use there, but for lack of a better term.
Well, I think the point that you make about this, I don't know. I haven't seen this happening as much as it's happening now ever. Because I think if you left, obviously criticizing the news industry that you used to work in is not new, but doing it so publicly and just being like, no holds barred about, you're just flat propaganda, instead of just saying, no, thank you, I don't have time for an interview right now, I'm walking by, but like using the opportunity to go public with, and granted, okay, she's a Trump endorsed candidate, and Trump sort of started the more outspoken kind of fake news, in your face, give it to the media, publicity. So she's kind of in line, I guess, with that. But I think it's just interesting, because I don't remember hearing journalists give it to each other like that in the past.
No, you're 100% right. I think the biggest thing about that now is there is a misconception, and you and I have talked about this, that if you're a mainstream or corporate or legacy news journalist, that you can say F you to the man and go make it on YouTube or go make it on social media. Now, that's not always the case, but you can still go and make a living, especially if during your corporate years, you've invested your money right, or you've saved money, and you're like, or you can parlay this into a political career and have support, especially in states where, like, Kari Lake lives in Arizona, which is kind of purple right now. If she lived in Texas, she could probably win governor. Okay, let's be honest. But we live in this time now, back in the 90s or late 90s, early 2000s, I couldn't go out there and say F you CNN or F you Hearst Media or one of those. But now they can and hope to make a living on independently. So I think that's why you're seeing the increase.
Well, this may be part of the reason why there's some bad blood between CNN and Kari Lake. Here's an article from 2021,
This just gets
October
better.
16th. Fact-checking Kari Lake, serial promoter of election lies and early frontrunner in GOP primary for Arizona governor. Or this tweet from CNN. Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake, recently endorsed by Trump, has embraced fringe far-right figures in her campaign events, including publicly thanking a Nazi sympathizer for his support and appearing with figures linked to QAnon, a K-file review. Fine. So I don't know. I mean, that might be. Those are a couple quick finds. Might be why she doesn't want to do an interview with CNN. So my favorite parts about the whole video, again, the fact that journalists are talking to each other now, and that they held hands the entire time. That's like, I feel like that's only something women would do. I don't know. Maybe I'm being sexist here, but come on. You think dudes would hold hands like that while they're like giving each other the like side eye and the
Have you never watched a WWE or wrestling promo? That's what Kari Lake.
Not.
Okay, if you're a wrestling fan at all, that's what Kari Lake just did. She did the equivalent of a wrestling promo. Okay, she grabbed that lady, pulled her in, and said, "Hey, how you doing? It's great to see you. I'm gonna F you up."
I guess I'm curious about your thoughts specifically. Like, if you say we take away the fun of it all, of like watching this whole thing go down, and we just talk about if we care still. Maybe some people don't care, but let's just say, maybe, do you care a little bit about getting the message back to the mothership? I'm not sure this is really the most effective way to do it. I don't know. Because I do still feel like if there are people paying attention in the newsrooms, that I would like to be a voice that like the folks who are like 60% awake, and kind of like, maybe something's not right here, that you can sort of say, hey, you're not alone. And like, let's move in this direction of starting to ask some questions about whether we're really producing the journalism that we purport to produce. I don't think this tactic works to do that. Big picture. And I don't think she's trying to do that. I don't think she's trying to reform journalism at all. I think this is this is publicity for her running for governor, but big picture, I don't, whether it's the Washington Post journalists fighting with each other on Twitter, or it's people, just being stank with each other, towards, their former peers. I don't know. I don't see it as an effective long-term solution for trying to offer the opportunity to grow, I guess, for those who are interested in that, who are still in the industry.
No, 100% agree. This is, if you look at it from that perspective, this is nothing more than journalists fighting amongst journalists. Going on the basis or the premise that you just laid out. No, it doesn't help. But at the same time, doesn't that purport change? Shouldn't that bring about the change that we want in journalism? And sometimes those fights need to be fought within. Sometimes the veterans need to take control and challenge the system. I made the reference to Rage Against the Machine earlier. Yeah, sometimes you have to fight it from within. I have no problem with Kari Lake challenging the current atmosphere and systems of journalism and media in America. But does this help? I don't know. It's a good question. I would say, does it help? No. Does it help in the journalism aspect? Journalists fighting amongst each other? No, of course not. But does it also help bring about that corporate news is evil and they need to be checked? Yeah, possibly.
It probably gives the public a little bit of a better understanding that there's more variety than you probably think. And I don't know, maybe maybe people understanding that leads to newsrooms saying, which probably will never happen, but if it eventually gets back to newsroom management, because I would guess people like that have already written off Kari Lake. They already think she's right. I mean, look, they call her a
whack
conspiracy
job,
theorist, right?
and yeah.
So she's not going to win. She's not going to win hearts and minds. You know what I mean?
Right,
at this point,
absolutely.
but those of us who are like still trying to maintain some kind of
Something
I don't
that
know,
looks like
just
journalism.
we're just professionalism to say like, hey, I remember making these same mistakes. Like I was part of the system, and I, instead of like, hey, I never have had any issues. I never did anything wrong. I never participated in the factory farm of fake news. And you guys just suck. Trying to sort of say like, hey, let's try to work on how we can be more aware of, like a Cheryl Atkinson, who's like, she's just like still kind of in the game and trying to help journalists see how they're used as mouthpieces for propaganda.
Right.
I think that's going to be more effective if in fact that's your goal. I don't think that's Kari Lake's goal anyway. So, I mean, I'm just saying that I think, big picture for journalists to just keep socking it to each other long-term. I don't think that's necessarily like, if you really want to go back and reform it, maybe you just want to just set the whole thing, ablaze ideologically and just let it die in a dumpster, that I guess some people might say that's a solution too. Like CNN Plus no longer exists. And Kari Lake obviously pointed that out.
Right. Well, can we agree on this, that journalism is an institution of American society?
Yeah. I would say journalism is a vital part of the whole thing going. Right. without it just completely combusting. Yeah.
I think journalism over the last 40 years, I would dare even go so far back as to say 50 years ago, has had this big psychic shift to, we need to make more money because that's the end all be all, but B, we need to make ourselves more interesting. We need to make ourselves more important and viable. Well, what playbook are they following? They're following the playbook of politics. Okay. Politics, for the most part, people don't care unless somebody's jabbing back and forth with somebody else. Okay. Most people, honestly, at the end of the day, do not care in American society as long as they can live their lives, make the choices that they want, and feed their families and take care of themselves. But when you've got somebody who's wearing a suit and a red tie calling somebody a socialist who's wearing a suit and a blue tie, and then the blue tie guy calls him a racist for calling him a socialist, that starts accelerating things. And journalism has saw that and said, hey, this is how we make ourselves more important. This is how we make ourselves more relevant. So I really think that you see where I'm going with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with the rise of everybody having their own social media following.
Yes.
And having to sort of outdo each other on social media. That has had a chronically negative effect, I think, on
100%.
on journalists being a team sport, where you're like, you're trying to work through complex issues together. Now it's like used to just call each other out if you have wrong think, or to just get a bigger following. And you become your own brand. It's just becoming your own brand. And the newsrooms love it until you use your brand to go off label, and then they smoke you. And I think that's wrong.
Right.
Honestly, they shouldn't want their little trolls to have mini kingdoms on Twitter at all, like as far as like just building it up by setting fires. And I think a lot of them mistakenly are like, oh, let's get that person, let's get that person, let's get that person because they've got a big following. Well, they got their big following by doing exactly what then, fast forward a year or two later, you're going to fire them for. And it's like, did you kind of create them? I mean, you like that.
Right.
And you created them, and then you decided once they actually got too good at it, that you were going to let them go. So,
or even that, or you've got somebody who generates buzz, who generates controversy, who generates clicks. Okay. If you have that going on, then, the corporation loves you because they love that traffic. It's something that they can sell to advertisers. But the second that you have something that advertisers won't buy, or something that advertisers have an issue with, then you're a pariah and you're on your own. God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Take a Taylor Lorenz, for example. Do you think she would anybody give two shits about Taylor Lorenz if she was not in the New York Times previously or in Washington Post currently? No, nobody would give a damn about Taylor Lorenz, who she is or what she says. But she's got these corporate platforms that she can go on. Okay. And, but Taylor Lorenz, I would probably guesstimate she's somewhere. What would you say, Allison? She's somewhere in the mid six-figure range. If I had to bet my next paycheck on what Taylor Lorenz makes from the Washington Post right now, I'd say somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 a year would be my guess.
I wouldn't go that high. I'd say
really.
Oh yeah, I'd say maybe 150K would be.
Okay.
That's where I'd cap it.
But she's in the six figures.
Six figures, yeah, I would say yeah, but probably not anywhere near 200. That would be my guess.
Right, but as a brand, would Taylor Lorenz make more or less, do you think?
Less. You mean if she wasn't who she is? Yeah, if she wasn't. Oh yeah, newspaper reporters make no money. Yeah, the average newspaper reporter doesn't make hardly any money. Yeah, so Bill and I are just totally conjecturing on her salary, but like let's just say she made over a six-figure salary. I think a lot of newspaper reporters never get close to that. So yeah, exactly. You're right.
No, while she's under the corporate thumb, she's not going to make anywhere near as much as she could on her own or as a brand. So I don't understand why some of these reporters are in for it so much for themselves versus just being a journalist first. I get it. You got to take care of yourself first. You got to put food on your table. You have to pay your bills. I get that. But, $150,000 a year salary versus what you might make on YouTube or what you might make on Twitch. Come on. Not everybody is going to make the same money independently or as their own brand versus, what you're getting paid by a corporation right now. Yeah, that's what she did. Literally, she just pulled off a WWE or UFC promo is what she did. And it's great. It's fun. It's hilarious.
Okay. And just to go back to what we were talking about earlier so that we can fact check ourselves in midstream. This was the person who stopped her. And so she's a national correspondent. So she is a reporter. Okay. However, this was written by Daniel Dale, not her. Right. But I mean, they're all working for the same company.
Right, exactly. If you go back and you watch the clip, there was obviously another time where this reporter had some kind of encounter with Kari Lake. Now, what the extent of that was, I don't know. I don't think we have time to go back and fact check it in here. But I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that Kari Lake would have done this with anybody who identified themselves with CNN or MSNBC.
Right. I agree. Yeah. And well, there you have it. Bill, any closing thoughts? Again, I just want to double mention Bill and I co-host an exclusive for supporter only on ROKFIN, Patreon, and Locals. So This is what you'll get if you go check us out. Go support us over on Locals, ROKFIN, and Patreon. And Bill, sign us out. What else? Anything? Final thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Just continue to support independent media. Continue to support independent journalists. Come and find us over on Locals. Come and find us on ROKFIN. We're more than happy to have you. And you're going to get more great content like this. Alt media, alt tech is the way to go right now. Everybody's starting to lean that way. So if you want more great content like this, make sure you come and follow Allison on Locals. Come and find us, Tittle Tattle, on ROKFIN. More than happy to have you there, but we're not always going to put this stuff out to everywhere.
All right, everybody, you heard it here first. Bill Doris. Thanks again.